first, you have a question? No, I didn't bring any tripods this time.
Anybody extra tripod?
It's all right. You know, it might be you should have very short.
Hey, we got the music turned off.
I don't know. No one's here, so I'm only the speaker. I don't know. Now, we're going to start the talk off with some Pringles.
Oh, yeah. Can we use this?
Know what I'm doing? It will be. See? There's a Chinese word for eclipse, which means...
Can you watch the eclipse through Pringles?
I'll tell you in a second. Well, in a bit. Oh, but this has nothing to do with that. This has to do with, you're all sitting there watching me, right? He's eating. What's the biggest word on a cruise ship? Eat. See? But the earliest accounts we have of a total solar eclipse come from the Chinese word qi, which means to eat. It eats the sun, right? So the dragon eats the sun. You look at all other different cultures, and, okay, so the Chinese had a dragon. There was an American Indian tribe that had a giant spirit that ate the sun. In Africa, it was the sun, sorry, a snake that ate the sun. And same in India. So it's always they see something devouring the sun. Something is eating the sun. But what I was just doing was, you see, I was enjoying that, right? And that's what this eclipse is about. It's really about you and your connection to this celestial event. Nothing else really matters. You know, we're going to have the technical aspects. Okay, first contact, all you need to know is first contact, second contact, third contact, fourth contact. You know, eclipse is over. Most people, by the time third contact occurs, they all give up and they go to bed. No, actually, they go down and eat. So, but we'll come back to the Pringles. But it's about you, and I'm going to read you something from. I have all these little bits of paper that I've collected. But this comes from Annie Dillard's book. She was a Pulitzer Prize winning author. And she wrote, and I highly suggest you read this book. It's called Teaching a Stone to Talk. Isn't it wonderful? Teaching a Stone to Talk. And she has a section on totality. And by far, it is the only account of totality that comes close to capturing an individual experience of totality. I'm just going to read you a few sections here and now. But this is why it's about you. It's very important. What you see in the eclipse is entirely different from what you know. You can sit here and teach you everything, all the science about totality, but it's going to have nothing to do with the experience of totality. It is especially different for those of us whose grasp of astronomy is so frail that, given a flashlight, a grapefruit, 2 oranges, in 15 years, we still cannot figure out which way to set the clocks for daylight saving times. She's so right. Usually, it is a bit of a trick to keep your knowledge from blinding you. But during an eclipse, it is easy. What you see is much more convincing than any wild-eyed theory you may know. So, theory doesn't really matter, except for one part. Yes? Oh, were you waiting? No, sorry. Okay, that's all right. Except for one part. First contact. Okay, now, we're in the ocean. I don't know, how many of you are basically first timers? First time to see an eclipse? Okay, wonderful, that's great. I hope this experience helps you because, you know, one of the most frightening things for an astronomer to be aboard a ship is to look out for landmarks on a vast ocean because they're going to say, if you're on land, you say, I'm plotting it right here. This eclipse is going to occur between Starbucks and McDonald's on 34th Street in New York City. And you can go there with your GPS and everything's fine. But in a way, when you're out in the middle of the ocean and you're saying you're going to go hit the path of totality in the middle of nowhere, we really are letting go of everything. You have no control. You really don't. You want to jump overboard, you can, but you're on a ship, and we've given everything over to science because it's this one magical moment that has to occur at this one spot in a particular time in order for us to see totality. It's a very narrow path, but it's a science. It really is, I'm telling you. I was on a small yacht in the Galapagos in 1998, and someone said they thought the GPS worked. We were heading up into the ocean north of Pinta Island, and it was, I'm telling you that, forget totality, it was so astounding when I saw the first contact. I was just elated. I think I lost 20 pounds just by seeing it. But you're in good hands. I hope. No, you're not. You're in good hands. It's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. But here's what Annie Dillard has to say about first contact. And it's true. You know, for all the first-timers too, what usually happens during an eclipse is everyone's excited, it grows, and we're waiting for first contact. And then once someone shouts out, first contact, everyone's, oh yeah, I got it. Followed by, okay, now what? Hour and a half. Gotta wait. Oh, come on, son. You know, stomach's starting to growl. All right, so it began with no ado. It was odd that such a well-advertised public event should have no starting gun, no overture, or no introductory speaker. I should have known right then that I was out of my depth. Without pause or preamble, silent as orbs, a piece of the sun went away. We looked at it through welder's goggles. A piece of the sun was missing. In its place, we saw an empty sky. Just simple enough. But once again, the universe, it all happens in silence. The ship won't be silent, but the eclipse happens in silence. And during that time now, the remainder of the partial phases, we call them, you have things to do. You really do. Now I'm going to try to tell you some things that are really fascinating and fun, just to pass your time. I mean, of course, after we have, well, first of all, to let you know, we downloaded an image today of the sun. And there is a multitude of sunspots. All right, there are at least, as of today, yeah, there are at least 3 dynamic groups on the sun. So, it's really, it's so good. Yeah. Because we had no spots for a while. And so, you know, unless things change, and things can always change for sunspots, but they look pretty stable to me. The 3 distinct groups. And so, let's hope that continues. Now, one thing you can do is look for an optical phenomenon. For those of you who have optical aid, if you have binoculars or if you have a telescope, there's a contrast illusion that was observed during the 19th century, and they thought it was the moon's atmosphere. So now they saw the moon passing in front of the sun. You had this intensely black silhouette covering the white disk, or the yellow, whatever filter you have. It can be yellow, orange, but that intensity of the black against the bright. What happens is it fatigues the eye. Your eye gets fatigued, and basically it bleaches out, and you end up with a white ring around the edge of the moon. The advancing edge of the moon starts to creep away, and as it eats, if you just stare at that disk for about 10 to 20 seconds, you may see a bright rim. It's not the atmosphere of the moon shining, sunlight shining through the atmosphere. It's just an optical effect called the contrast illusion. And it's something to look for. It's really fascinating. Your eyes kind of always jump. You have a little saccade, it's called. Your eyes always jumping. And so this little atmosphere is going to move in and out away from the limb. Now, once that limb starts to approach sunspots, you see sunspots are actually, they appear to be dark, but they're not really dark. Right? If you were to take a sunspot, throw it off the sun, project it against the sky, it would blaze brightly. It's just that it is not as bright as the sun, so it appears darker when projected against the sun. But here we have the moon passing in front of the sun, passing near a sunspot, and you'll see a difference between the intensity of the darkness of the silhouetted moon against a sunspot, which should look more gray than the rest of the sun. So it's just kind of fun. And also, I don't know what the atmosphere is going to be doing, but if the atmosphere at all is unstable, you may even see sunspots jump like a Mexican little jumping bean going off and on the limb of the moon as it approaches it. So just a few things that you can, that'll keep you occupied during that time. Now, if you keep yourself occupied while you're doing that, when the sun is about 50% eclipse, things start to happen. So I'm going to first ask you to be aware. And that starts with now, try to look for anything in the ocean. Fish, and just, I don't know. If you see nothing, that's good. That's the data. So get up in the early morning if you can. Look at the sky. Get up around 5:30 to 6 o'clock. Look at the sky. Look at the coloration of the sky. Look at the color of the ocean. It's all going to change. And it may or may not be different from what you see normally. So around the time when the sun is 50% eclipse, first thing that happens, generally is noted, is to drop. A slight wind comes upon you. And it really can be the gentlest of wind. Even if you have it's a different type of, you just start, it almost feels like someone's breathing on your neck. It's a very sensual moment, but things are starting to change and the coloration is starting to fade. Also, this is a good time around half eclipse to make projections. You make little holes in pieces of cardboard, and you hold it from the sun. The sun's going to be about 52 degrees high, and you hold it, and you can project the sun, and in the shadow, you see solar crescents. Now my mother showed me solar crescents when I was 6. That's how I got interested partly in astronomy. They were projected from holes in a Venetian blind across the floor. There's a whole series of solar crescents. And it's really beautiful. You can just find that. The other thing is to do is on ship is to look at shadows and start to look and see how deep you can see into a shadow. It sounds strange, but when totality comes and when the light begins to dim, it's going to be increasingly difficult to peer into shadows. Now, let's just see. We have Andy Dillard talking a bit too. Just me. Okay. Once you get to 75% eclipse, things start to happen more rapidly, and more things are going to start to change in your environment. All right, Andy Dillard says, I turned back to the sun. It was going. The sun was going. The world was wrong. The grasses were wrong. They were platinum. Their every detail of stem, head, blade shone lightless and artificially distinct, as an art photographer's platinum print. This color has never been seen on Earth. The hues were metallic, their finish was matte. The hillside was a 19th century tinted photograph from which the tints had faded. All the people you see in the photograph, distinct and detailed, their faces look, are now dead. You have to look at the people around you and how the light is playing on them. The sky was navy blue, my hands were silver. All the distant hills and grasses were a fine spun metal which the wind laid down. I was watching a faded color print of a movie filmed in the Middle Ages. I was standing in it by some mistake. I was standing in a movie of hillside grasses filmed in the Middle Ages. I missed my own country, the people I knew, in the real light of day. See, she was feeling. She was in the moment. And I know it's going to be difficult, especially on a crowded ship, to take all this in and have that time. But I really do, I really want you to feel that, because, especially for the first timers, there is nothing like the first time. And the more you get out of it, and you know what to look for, and you know how to, well, that you should feel. It's okay to feel. It's okay to get out of your element, get out of your skin, jump out of the box, forget everyone, and just start to look at the world around you. I mean, the event you're about to see has ended wars. It's just, it's an amazing event. So, going to sea. I was in the Galapagos again. I'm going to use that one because it was really fascinating, because you never know what's going to happen, right? So to give you an idea of sort of a countdown, what happens, 75% eclipse. This is just out of my journal. It's like in the experience, writing, looking, so it's not the best prose, but it's okay. 75% eclipse. The western sky is yellow, the eastern sky is slate. Bright areas on the boat lost their luster. The faces of people surrounding me turned steely blue, as if some alchemist had turned their skin to metal. The wind gusted. 90% eclipse. The temperature in the sun plunged to a low of 88 degrees Fahrenheit, a dip of 27 degrees Fahrenheit since the start of the eclipse. Chocolate, which had melted in the sun, began to harden. Frigate birds began to circle high overhead, while seagulls flew abreast of us, looking as if they wanted to roost. 95% eclipse. The water's surface was being pelted by an invisible rain. Thousands of tiny circles expanded in the water, snapping and popping as they appeared. Yet the sky was blue, and we couldn't feel a drop of rain. Nightfish had surfaced and were snapping away in a feeding frenzy. 98% eclipse. The western horizon looked bruised and ugly, apocalyptic. Clouds turned pink, the ocean deep blue. Wedges of tangerine light slipped into the moody north and southern skies. Venus and Jupiter snapped into view. All around me, light drained away. I felt as if I was stepping into a dream where people sail like ghosts in the faded reality. So this was just, at the time, looking, feeling, observing. The colors and everything that you see, you have 360 degrees of color that are going to be affected. Now, that's it. That's what we fun. All right, I'm going to tell you this one. I'm going to tell you this one, because you may not even believe it. This is going to be for, hopefully, for the more experienced. How many of you like to count how many seconds you've been in totality? Not even totality, how about corona? Like, you want to extend your knowledge and see the corona as long as possible? Do you know that you can see the corona before the totality begins? Yeah, so you can. Now, I first noticed this in India, where totality ended, and then we had initially 10 seconds more of corona. Just by, usually when people see the diamond light, they get all giddy and yell and say, oh, it's over. But yet the eclipse is still going on. On the trailing side, which is still blocked by the sun, you can still continue to see the corona. And we followed it in that eclipse for 10 seconds. So I tried it in 2 other places. And one of them was in, well, we did this in Egypt, but we started before totality, And you could see the totally eclipsed sun for several minutes before totality, just by blocking out the bright part. So if you pick a smokestack or something and block out the sun, you can actually start to see the corona appearing. The other thing you can do is when you have about 2 minutes left before totality, before diamond ring, take off the filters, use your binoculars, block the sun, and look off the side, and you'll see it's called a hairbrush, and you'll see fine fringes of hair, and they usually have a slight powder blue or pale green coloration to them, too. And this is before you get to the point where you see the full corona, and the power of the light actually blinds you from seeing faint light within it. So leading up into the final minutes, 3 minutes before totality, right? 3 minutes before totality, shadow bands. Shadow bands are an atmospheric phenomenon caused by the thinning crescent shining through different layers of the atmosphere, and each of these layers act like these little cells of air, act like lenses, and they create these snaky features that move across the ground. You can see them slithering across the ground. So what you should do is, wherever you set up, you should bring up a sheet, a white sheet, and lay it down near you. So you're not blocking anyone else, but just put it near you, even if you fold it up and have a small one. And you can see it. In many eclipses, the shadow bands can be very vast. They're not just tiny little bands. They can be slithering across the entire ship. They can be that large or that small. No one knows. It varies with the atmosphere. It varies with each eclipse. But it's always good, so 3 minutes beforehand, and they become more prevalent. This is the trick, okay? They become more and more prevalent the closer you get to the diamond ring. So it's your call. It also happens after totality. So a lot of people don't look for them before totality, they look for them after totality. So it's the same thing. But it is worth looking at, but as I said, everything happens very quickly now. So you have totality coming, you have the diamond ring coming, you have, and at that point, I would suggest when you start to see the diamond ring and we're starting to call it out, take off your filters, do not look through your dark glasses. You're going to be viewing totality with your eye, unaided eye. So remove the filters and then take glances at the sun. Because I'm telling you, 2 things start to occur immediately leading up to the diamond ring. First of all, you're going to start to see the corona on the trailing side of the sun. Second of all, you're going to see the diamond, as the diamond ring starts to fade, this is what you really want because you don't have much time to see this. You're going to look for the solar chromosphere. It's red. And you'll be able to see for a brief period of time a red ring around the moon right before full totality occurs and it's covered. You may also see prominences. Now, one thing you want to do is, and I'm not going to tell you the color of the chromosphere or the prominences. I would love for you to record it and tell me. Because what happens is, once I tell you a color, it's not going to leave your mind. That's somebody did that to me in my first eclipse. So when I first saw a prominence, I could only see that color that he said. And that ruined the experience, in a sense. So it's just, you have to look up and tell me what you see. Then when you have a phenomenon very early on called Bailey's beads, and it's a ring of diamonds that occur along the edge of the sun. It can mix in with the chromosphere, so you have a ring of diamonds and rubies. And then it's gone. It's fully covered, and totality begins. Now, totality lasts for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. But actually, it's only going to be 8 seconds. Every eclipse is 8 seconds. I'm telling you, it's just absolutely true. I mean, even Annie Dillard, when she was writing about it, she was just talking about how the sun was going, and they saw the diamond ring. People started to scream. Everyone was getting all this excited. Then she said the lens slammed shut in her mind, and she was gone. She saw the corona, the eclipse was over. But it wasn't, you know. That's what sort of happens. You know, I can't tell you what you're going to sense or feel. But now, during totality, you're going to be looking at the outer corona. And Kelly's going to be talking to you, showing you images of all this on at 2 o'clock. So I highly recommend everyone is there. And during totality, it is very important, and the most important thing, don't talk to anyone else. I mean, you know, unless you're with someone. You know, but don't bother anyone else. Say, oh, excuse me, do you have a filter, or do you have? What time is it? You know, leave. Totality, 3.5 minutes. You can really stop talking for 3.5 minutes. Really, it's possible. Just don't bother anyone. You come this incredible voyage, everyone's paid whatever they have to, you know, and then you're going to be wanting to maximize, really, totality. The whole idea is to maximize your experience of totality. Partial phases, no. Now, so just hold that. Now, Andy Dillon said something very interesting about, for the first timers. Let me just see it. Well, I guess, anyway, what she did, for those first timers, I often hear from someone, I think I saw a total eclipse. Yeah, you got it. And so, the answer is, you know, no. No. And Eddie Dillard says, the difference, she says partial eclipses are interesting, but they have nothing to do with a total solar eclipse. She says seeing a partial phase versus a total eclipse is like kissing a man and marrying him, or being in an airplane and jumping out of one. You just don't forget an experience like that. So you're in for something. Now, during totality, there's lots of fun things you can do. Let's get rid of these Pringles. All right. Get rid of those Pringles. And I did this in Turkey. You know, I've seen enough eclipses that I can play. So, during totality, one thing, did you know that the Earth is shining onto the face of the moon? Yeah. It's Earth-like. So it's new moon, but the way it works is that the moon's phase is totally opposite that of the Earth phase. So the moon is in new moon, you can't see it, but the Earth is in full moon, as seen from the moon. So if you take a Pringles can and you put a little pinhole on the inside, outside, in the silver part, now that will just about cover the face of the sun. So what you need to do is to put this, you need a little shawl like this. That's what I was saying. Pantyhose also works. I know. But it's true. Okay, you fold it over. Now, the idea of this is that it's mesh. You fold it over a few times, and so you want to be able to see, you have to point at the sun. So the sun's corona is about as bright as a full moon. Same brightness as a full moon. So you want to have your head covered, so you're not getting any glow from the horizon on either side of it. And you want to cover your head, and then look up. And all you see is the face of the moon. And by doing that, you can see the actual Earth shine on the moon. Look, I did this, like I said. Right, you're gonna wait.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking from Navigation Bridge. The exact time on board Celebrity Millennium. It's 2 minutes past 10 o'clock. At this time, I would like to share some navigation and weather information with you all. The current ship's position is as follows. Latitude 25 degrees 01 minutes south. Longitude 177 degrees 09 minutes east. The ship's course is of 187 degrees. This is a southerly course, and the speed is 21.5 knots. The distance we have covered since our departure from the port of Suva, Fiji, is 429 nautical miles, with an average speed of 22.5 knots. The remaining distance to our next port of call, Tauranga, New Zealand, is 745 nautical miles. Our closest point of land is South Minerva Reef, at a distance of 210 nautical miles off our port quarter. The sea depth of the area is 3,521 meters. This is equivalent to 11,548 feet. The weather today is as follows. Partly cloudy skies with an air temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. This is equivalent to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The sea temperature is 24 degrees Celsius, which is equivalent to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. The seas are calm, with winds coming from westerly-southwesterly direction at a maximum velocity of 5 knots. According to the latest weather report, for tomorrow, we are expecting to have partly cloudy skies, with winds coming from westerly-southwesterly direction at a maximum velocity of 25 knots, and an air temperature of 24 degrees Celsius. This will be equivalent to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm anticipating to arrive to the central line of the solar eclipse passage tomorrow morning at about 7 o'clock, and thereafter to position the ship to the most comfortable right and slow down so we can see the solar eclipse. We will remain in the area for approximately 3.5 hours, and once the phenomenon has occurred, we will resume our trip towards our next destination, Tauranga. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention. And I do wish you to have a wonderful day on board the beautiful Celebrity Millennium. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Captain. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rich with a quick rundown of our Celebrity Life activities. But I'd like to do a couple of announcements regarding the solar eclipse. Our housekeeping department do a fabulous job for us. They are in the process of delivering your protective sunglasses to your stateroom today. Also with a letter. We ask that you please read this letter. On one side, it instructs you how to protect your eyesight. You should never look at the sun with an unprotected eye. And we ask that you please don't use these eyeglasses until tomorrow so they don't get lost, as we have enough for everyone on board, but not enough to be replacing them. Also, on that piece of paper on the back side is information on camera usage. And the #1 rule, please no flash photography. Make sure you cover up the sensor, you cover up the flash, especially when we are in totality. It is very important not to have your flash on. And please, if you have a camera or telescope that is unfiltered, you should not be relying on your glasses to look through the camera to protect your eye. Also, we've been asking all of our guests to have you wash your hands, and we're happy to report that things have gotten much better on board, but we do ask that you continue to always sanitize when you're walking around the ship, wash your hands, use the Perel machines, very important, but the process is working due to your help and the amazing crew here on board. Oceans Ahead, part of our Celebrity Life activity, Secrets of Navigation. Join Justin, our navigation officer, on the main stage as he tells you all the equipment that we use and how we've navigated from Hawaii on down to Australia. Tiffany Lynn will be in the Gamma Room talking about New Zealand's famous film locations. That will be at 11:30, and a merengue dance class at noon. Join our art auctioneers for an Art Jeopardy in the Emporium stage on Deck 5, where all the gift shops are. Gift shops open all day, lots of great sales. Stop on by. And at 1 o'clock, Battle of the Sexes Trivia continues, and the men have finally taken the lead. We'll be raising money for the benefit of Breast Cancer Research Foundation with our free dance at 2:30. And we will be showing the NFL's football game, the Chiefs versus the Steelers at Michael's Club and Fortune's Casino. This is Monday Night Football on Tuesday afternoon. Global Flavors with our executive chef, a great cooking demonstration in the Rendezvous Lounge at 3 o'clock. And tonight's featured entertainer on the main stage, Jackie Love in concert. Jackie is an amazing singer, has performed with some of the greats, such as Sammy Davis Jr., and has performed for the Queen of England. 7 o'clock for our late seating guests, 9 o'clock for our main seating guests. And tonight, in the casino at 10 o'clock, I'll be giving away lots of cash in red and black, no raffle tickets. If you are in the casino, you are in the game, and it costs nothing to play. And at 10:30, we'll have Karaoke Idol, where you can perform for your fellow guests and face the judges. It's a lot of fun. 10:30 in Cosmos. Whatever you decide to do, have a wonderful day, and we will see you around the ship.
Guten Morgen, meine Damen und Herren. Ich bitte um Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Dies war Ihr Kapitän Karamas von der Kommandobrücke mit den neuesten Informationen bezüglich der Navigation und dem Wetter für heute. Die geografische Position des Schiffes war um 6. Die Breite war 25 Grad 1 Minuten Süd und die Länge 177 Grad 9 Minuten Ost. Seit unserem letzten Hafen, Fiji, haben wir bis jetzt 429 Seemeilen zurückgelegt und die Geschwindigkeit im Moment beträgt 21,5 Knoten. Die nächste Landmasse ist die Süd-Minerva-Riff in einer Distanz von 210 Seemeilen an der Backbordseite. Die Distanz bis zum nächsten Hafen, Tauranga, Neuseeland, beträgt 745 Seemeilen. Und der Wind kommt im Moment aus südwestlicher Richtung mit einer Stärke von 5 Knoten. Die Lufttemperatur im Moment ist 20 Grad Celsius und es ist heute teils bewölkt. Die Meerestemperatur ist 24 Grad Celsius und die Wassertiefe beträgt 3521 Meter. Morgen sind wir ungefähr 3,5 Stunden in der Nähe, von wo die Sonnenfinsternis stattfinden wird. Das wird um ungefähr 9 Uhr geschehen und wir sind ab 7 Uhr in der Nähe von dieser Sonnenfinsternis. Nachdem werden wir weiterfahren nach Tauranga. Wir möchten Sie ebenso daran erinnern, dass das gründliche Händewaschen mit Seife und warmem Wasser sehr wichtig ist, um gastrointestinale Krankheiten zu vermeiden. Wir bitten Sie auch, Händeschütteln zu verzichten, weil die Krankheiten durch Persönlichkeitskontakte übertragen werden können. Wir bitten Sie ebenso, sofort die medizinische Fazilität an Bord zu besuchen, falls Sie sich krank fühlen. Meine Damen und Herren, vielen Dank für Ihre Mitarbeit und Kooperation und wir wünschen Ihnen einen wunderschönen Tag an Bord der Celebrity Millenium.
All right, we're done. Okay, so we have to apologize for that. We thought it was just going to be the captain talking, but once it begins, the snowball starts rolling, it just goes. So we really apologize for that. And but we are nearing the end, because I do want to have some questions, but we're going to continue with the food. So, yes. Now we know during totality, something else you can do is look for planets. So Venus will be the most obvious object. It would be about 32 degrees to the upper left of the sun and moon. And Saturn, which would be a little more difficult to see, but still should be still obvious because it will be about halfway between Venus and the sun. Mercury will be on the other side of the sun. All you have to do is draw a line through Venus and Saturn and the sun and moon, and Mercury would be about half the distance away, about 8 degrees away to the lower right. So what you can do, if you're having any trouble with that, is to use a Twizzler. So the Twizzler, held at arm's length, subtends an angle of 15 degrees. So, now, what's good about this, if you put, because one of the hardest things to do is to draw imaginary lines. And if you close one eye and put the edge of the Twizzler on the sun, Venus will be about 2 Twizzlers away from the sun. Yeah, you could do that too. I mean, you could do this, you know. Venus will be about that far away. Yeah. But it's more fun if you have Twizzlers doing it. You know, Mercury will be 1/2 of a Twizzler because you get the line. You get the line with that. It'll be shorter, but you know, by the time you eat, you have to eat during the eclipse. That's part of the experience. And by the way, also, if you run out of filters for any reason, you can always go down and get Pop-Tarts. Inside the Pop-Tarts, they're wrapped in Mylar that has been proven to be actually safe.
The tea-bar Pop-Tarts.
What is it?
Safe at the Pop-Tarts.
Which, oh, inside you mean?
Yeah.
No, you don't. No. You should not eat anything I just showed you. You should eat, but not anything I showed you. But it really is a Pop-Tart. It is in safe Mylar. Can I tell you, I'll tell you an Eclipse story. Want to hear an Eclipse chase story that has to deal with Mylar? So, this was actually an annual eclipse. It was in the one that was in New Mexico and Texas. And I wanted to go out with my friend. We wanted to see it from the Carlsbad Cavern Caves. We wanted to see if the bats came out. You have to always, think of nature. Like, what's happening is part of nature. You know, if we were on land, I'd be saying, look for cows going, saying, oh, it's the end of the day, or birds going to roost. But, we're at sea, so you have to kind of change your thinking. But anyway, so here we were, Carlsbad, we woke up, and then bang, absolutely gray skies. As far as you could see, we only had about an hour and a half before annularity. Wasn't much time to what to do. We turned on the TV, and we're watching this broadcast, and I saw between 2 heads, blue sky. And I was like, where is this? And they said it was in Austin, Texas. I said, it's impossible to get there, but let's get in the car, and let's go. So we jumped in the car, put all the gear in the trunk, started driving, and we went over the Guadalupe mountain range. And about halfway over the mountain range, he just said, uh-oh. I said, what? And he said, I forgot to fill up. So we're in the middle of the Guadalupe mountain range, so we forgot the first rule of the eclipse chasing, fill up the tank the night before. So we had it, we're on empty, and we're in fumes, and we started driving down the hill. I don't know. No, they did. I saw. No, they were. They definitely were filling in the shed. So I thought about that. But we were up in the mountains, and we were gliding down the hill, just going, well, there's nothing else we can do but go for it as fast as we could. So, and I said, not a problem. I found a map, and I'm saying, okay, the next town, we're good. If we can get a half hour out of this, we're going to get to this town called whatever. End up getting to that town, enter it, and it's just dust. Tumbleweeds are going. It was a ghost town. Someone said, oh no. We were just basically, we're buzzard meat. And then he said, where's the eclipse going? If I put all the stuff in the back of they're all locked up in the trunk and the camera equipment. So here we were with no filters, no nothing. And I just said, well, we'll just continue to drive, don't stop. And then, out of the desert, on the horizon, you just saw this shimmering kind of light. And out of nowhere, there was just a little teeny hut and 2 guests. And there was a little, I went inside, and the first thing I said was, do you sell Pop-Tarts? So we did, and I went in, and I got the Pop-Tarts, and I was able to monitor the eclipse, judge how much time we had to get there, we filled up the car, and, you know, we got to the Eclipse, and of course it was like, we just got set up, it was just almost ready for second contact, and the police came by. Can't be on the shoulder of the road. And we're like, oh, you gotta be kidding. No, you gotta move your equipment, you gotta go, and so we were scrambling. But we did get it. But anyway, that's my puff cut story. Look at, so the whole point is, during totality, everything you should be doing is everything you want to do yourself to feel the experience. I had a friend who just said, one of our guests, he said, I know we're not supposed to talk during totality, but can we scream? I was like, yeah, go ahead. Just go ahead and scream. Now, on third contact, you'll hear, and that means everything, you know. You have to throw your filters on. Well, that means you don't have to look at the sun, but I'm going to tell you again, you should. You have to block the illuminated part of the sun. Now your eyes will have dark adapted, and you will be able to continue to see the corona for a minute. We did this, Dennis and Chico and I did this in Africa, and I was able to follow it for 5 minutes after totality to see the corona, to continue to see the corona. And he videotaped it for like 6 minutes and 42 seconds, something like that. We did the same thing in Egypt. So every single clip I've been on, we've been able to follow the corona, mostly after, because of your eye has had a chance, now 3.5 minutes to dark adapt. Now, throughout totality, and right before that, the entire horizon line, light will be coming in from beneath. So the sky's not going to go turn totally dark, totally black. I suggest, especially if you're a beginner, don't waste any time looking for starlight. There will be stars around, but every minute of looking at totality is precious. And there's something else I'd like you to look for that would, I'd like to see if it ever occurs again. It's a huge band. I've only seen it, I think, once or twice during totality. And you see the total solar eclipse, the black silhouette of the moon. You see the corona. You see the light going out in various directions. We have a solar maximum corona, so we're not going to have the long equatorial petals. You're going to be seeing streamers going off 360 degrees around the sun, right, with variations. There will be petals, but you're going to get 360 degrees of petals. Is something that goes beyond the corona along the equatorial plane. So it's like you have the sun in the corona, and then you have these arms that come out. It'll be inclined like this. 1030 to 530 position angle. 1030 to 530 position angle. Very faint. It's along the line of the ecliptic, and I think it's zodiacal light. It's actual light from dust particles in the plane of the inner solar system. So if you can look for that, it'd be really good. I'd also like you to look at the color of the corona, if you can, especially before and after totality, like the real totality. If you get to see the corona, the fine feather brush corona before totality and after totality, that's when the colors will be most obvious. And then also during totality, if you see any color. The true color of the corona is actually white with a pale green. But again, it's a little bit difficult to see, but now that I told you that, maybe you'll be able to look for it. And that's, let's see, with that, the only thing I really didn't tell you much about is the advancing moon shadow. This is going to be up to you. So you're going to have to, oh boy. So it's going to come in the opposite direction from the sun, and it happens at the diamond ring, and it happens so quickly, and it's so large and so vast that you really, sometimes it's almost impossible to see. Easy to photograph, but very difficult to see. So I don't even know if I want you to wait. Because the diamond ring is going to be so spectacular. I told you all these other things to look for during the diamond ring effect. But the advancing moon shadow is just going to come up out of the west, and the sky's just going to get darker, and then it's going to go bang. And totality is going to occur. It's that fast. You don't even have a chance to react. It comes. And then it's just, like Andy Dillon said, you know, the lens cap on our mind just slams shut, bang, and then it appears. It just, I'm not even telling you. It's not right. I can't tell you. You have to feel it. You have to experience it. This is your eclipse. Everyone in this room, this is your eclipse. 3.5 minutes of totality are precious to you. So respect everyone. Let everyone have that intense 3.5 minutes. And you'll have a great time. Thank you. Yes. Are we going to have a what?
Are they going to leave the deck lights?
No, there won't be. I'm told that there are going to be no deck lights. And Kelly will probably be talking about this in lunch. But I was told that there are no automatic deck lights. In other words, when it gets dark, they just don't turn on. In other words, someone has to turn them on. So there will be, as far as to my knowledge, no deck lights, obviously. Try that. Yes, please.
I don't know the exact time before contacts, but
Yep.
it's like 10:30 or something.
Yeah, we're gonna post them down at the now that the captain gave us the coordinates. You know, it's gonna change too, right? So this is what's interesting. I can tell you first and second. I think it's one second. Oh, you have it? Oh, hi, Bill.
So, you know, I'm going to go over all this today at 2 o'clock, and so I sure hope to see you all there. We are all happy to answer your questions in between now and then. The contact times are based on a ship's position that we plan to be at, and that is subject to the cloud conditions that we'll have at that time. And will also depend on the direction that the ship is going. As of now, we plan to be steaming down the central line. And as of now, we plan to have mid-totality be at about 10:22 local time in the morning. With that in mind, first contact will be at about 9:10 in the morning. Second contact will be at about 10:20. And last for 3, that is the beginning of totality, and last for 3.5 minutes. We're actually planning to have a few more seconds of totality than we otherwise might have, so plan on 3.5 minutes of totality, therefore ending at about 10:23:30. And then fourth contact will be about an hour and 10 minutes later, estimated at 11:40 a.m. So we're talking about from 9:10 to 11:40, about 2.5 hours all told, from the first contact to 4.
Then you have lunch.
So my concern is that the captain said he's going to arrive around 7 o'clock on Saturday. 3.5 hours. And then be here for 3 minutes.
No. Don't worry. No.
Thank you.
He misspoke. No.
I wouldn't say that as well. I thought, oh, okay.
Yeah, we're
Well,
not
the casino will be open for you in 12 hours.
I thought it in everything.
Well, Kelly will go over that type of more intense detail later. But does anyone else have any other questions of the more? Yes.
What position on the sun will the moon be coming first time?
Yeah, about
Upper left.
10:30-ish.
Upper left.
Yeah. Yeah. If you get up in the morning, all you have to do is get up in the morning at 5:30. Like today was a really good day because the moon was there, and you see the Venus, the moon, and then the position of the sunrise. So just take a look at where Venus is, and just draw a line straight down to the point of sunrise, and you'll see the positioning, which is about 10:30-ish. So give or take a few. Hi.
One of the fascinating things after the last Bailey's beads, specifically on the ship, is to see the lunar shadow rushing off to the east and seeing the people in the east, and then we're looking at the time.
These are one of the most fascinating things after Bailey's beads is to see the moon shadow
Yeah.
without trying to do that. I'm so sorry. Yeah, he was saying that one of the most beautiful things that he's seen after Bailey's beads is to look off, he's saying, to the east, and then seeing the shadow running away to, into the east. Yes?
Something I look for in the shed is I look at the surface.
Mhm.
That's not where you look. You have to look at the sky, not the surface. The whole sky.
The whole sky, it's literally, it's coming up, it's literally coming up, and then there's a massive collision overhead, at the sun. I mean, the moon's shadow is, and it's quite expansive. I mean, that's what I'm saying, it's hard to detect because it's quite expansive, and then it comes up and slams into the sun. And you want to look at the diamond ring, and you want to look at this, and so it gets, like I said, as totality becomes increasingly close, so much is happening. There's animal behavior, there's dramatic light changes, there's color changes, there's the shadow going on, the sun is basically slipping away, and then, the troposphere, everything, prominences, everything is happening, and you just want to take it all in. And sometimes that's why it's just best just to let it go. It's just to know that all this intensity is going on. If it's your first time, and we can still talk about it later. We haven't asked for the astronomer thing later at 10:30. Yes.
What altitude and azimuth approximately will the sun?
The sun's going to be at totality 52 degrees, and it's going to be about 40 degrees off the port side of the ship. Left side. Azimuth is 78 degrees. All right. So just. Yes, hi.
At what point does it safe to look at the sun with the binoculars without filters?
All right, at what point is it safe to look at the sun without filters? I'm going to say that through binoculars, yeah. Definitely not the diamond. When you see the diamond ring start to fade and it's about halfway gone, diamond ring is going to appear and then fade. It's not just going to go here, gone. You're going to have a moment, but as soon as the diamond ring appears, you're going to have to take your filters off. And by the time you take your filters off, you should be ready to look at the sun with your binoculars. But you're going to hear people starting to scream. There's going to be a, oh, you can see it, and the diamond ring is going to be there, and then it's going to start to fade. You have to be quick, throw those things off, look at the sun as quickly as you can. I mean, if you put your binoculars, you have to use common sense. Yes?
Just want to mention that, one of the things that enhances your view of the corona is to be as dark adapted as possible. And that's why the diamond ring is, for a lot of people, more spectacular at third contact than second. So what I would suggest to you is don't blow your eyesight trying to focus on the diamond ring, because as soon as it disappears, you're going to be wanting to look for prominences on both sides of the sun, and that requires, sort of your a fainter level. And so I would, in your binoculars, personally, I would like sort of focus on the diamond ring as a visual phenomenon, and then once it's just after it's kind of waning, as Steve says, then turn the binoculars on.
Kelly, will you be you'll be calling the eclipse from the bridge, right, and telling us these things?
I have good news and finally good news. The good news is I'll be calling the eclipse from the bridge for the whole ship. We're trying to arrange to not have to go boom, boom, every time I want to say something. It's mid-totality. And as of this time yesterday, it looked like I was not going to get to see the eclipse because of that, because the bridge has no side wings or anything. But I was up there yesterday, I discovered that there is a small window, which I and 10 of my new closest bridge friend buddies are going to want to stick our head out, and I think as long as we're on the center line, we're going to get to see totality. So I'm going to be, you can appreciate that a lot of this discussion is going to be primarily for everybody else on board, so that they know what to do, what's coming, because I can't expect them to actually read what's left in their cabins. I'm going to be kind of minimalist during totality, though I will give a call at mid-totality and maybe like 15 or 20 seconds before it's over, so that we know. But I mean, you'll see, you'll know. You'll know that it's about to end. And And so yeah, I'm going to be making calls. So and we won't have to break out the walkie-talkies. The plan had been that Steve was going to be down on the helipad, giving me hand signals like second contact. But I promise we won't have to do that.
Anyone want a Pop-Tart?
So we had planned in our schedule at this time. Steve, how about another round of applause for Steve? Only he can pull off what you're going to see during an eclipse and not show you. We had planned at this time to have something called Ask the Astronomers, which was a sort of, between me and Steve and Mike, to see if we could answer any question you had having to do with astronomy. But what we found was that there are probably still a number of you that want to have filters made for your gear. And so let me ask, how many of you are still needing a filter either for your binoculars or your camera? Okay, great. Not that many. It's not like the Attila the Hun in the sports. Mike Reynolds and Steve and I guess will be in the back over here to help you with that. And also, we're just going to kind of hang around here. I'm up in front. Honestly, I'm folding in the latest weather information and stuff. And let me just tell you a little bit about that. We were checking the weather this morning. There is a cold front moving through the area that is actually moving through there right now. If you were to look at the weather, a cloud satellite image of the eclipse area right now, it would look pretty scary. But it's supposed to pass through and leave us clear skies. I had an exchange with the Travel Quest meteorologist Jay Anderson this morning, and he said the weather prospects are basically for no cloud whatsoever this time tomorrow morning where we're going to be. And while that might be a little bit optimistic, it's definitely the kind of words we want to be hearing. And so with that in mind, I'm going to have another meeting with the captain at about lunchtime today in preparation for our meeting, our meeting all together. And I'm going to have, as best I can, I'll do everything I can to answer all of your questions at that time in that presentation. We haven't answered them already. But please do feel free to ask us if there's something that you want to pass on or concern. Steve, somebody came up to me and said that he saw what looked like a pumice raft off to the side of the ship, so you might want to go check that out. It looks like Deborah has an announcement. Saw him. No, she's just...
I just wanted to let you all know that we're closing the desk at 1 p.m. So it won't be open from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. because we would like everybody, including ourselves, to be in the Celebrity Theatre at that time. Okay, so, yeah, and then tomorrow morning, we'll also be saying this at 2 p.m. this afternoon when Kelly gives his talk, that we'll be opening the desk at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, we may be back there at 3:30 as well.
If there are more filters.
If there are more filters to be made.
Well,
we'll see.
Never say never. If you have a piece of equipment that you want to have a filter made for that's not here now, right? You can either run down and get it and come back and hold it here. Don't worry, we're not going to go anywhere. We have plenty of filter material left. Just a reminder for you might see people at dinner time or at a table that you're sharing. We are not going to be making filters for people outside of our group. As much as I would like to be doing that, just the altruist in me, there's not enough filter material, there's not enough time to be making 2,000 sets of filters for binoculars. It's just physically impossible. So we're just kind of drawing the line there. We have plenty of filter material for our group. I brought a square meter of the stuff, and most of it is gone. There's still plenty left, and so we'll be able to accommodate all of it. Yes? Right, and I'm not sure it is a pumice raft. That's why I wanted Steve to go take a look. A pumice raft is what you get when there's an underground subterranean volcano. In fact, there was a really beautiful one that we had hoped to see coming out of Samoa called the West Mata Mount. It's an actively erupting volcano underneath the sea, and because of the fact that it has a lot of gas coming out of it, unlike the volcano flows in Hawaii, which are kind of just gooey and syrupy, This was more pyroclastic and explosive, and the pumice that it creates literally floats to the sea, top of the sea, with enough of it that it makes kind of like a floating, foam mat in the sea. And we probably came very close to one. So Steve's going to check that out. All right, I would like to encourage you to just, okay, well, one question over here, go ahead. Right. So her question is, the captain says that the winds tomorrow might be as high as 25 knots, and that's true because we're going to be on the backside of that cold front. However, let me just finish answering the question, okay? We may be traveling in the same direction as that wind, and so the wind might not be nearly as strong, and also the wind itself might not be nearly that strong. So what I found on this ship is no matter what the wind direction seems to be, where I anticipate it coming from, it's usually not as strong. Like if you go out on deck now, you're not going to be hit with a 22 knot wind in your face. So we'll just play that one by ear. All right, folks, Mike and Steve, or if I can drag him away from the window, are going to be in the back making filters for you, and we're going to be hanging around. One last quick question.
I was just thinking this is probably obvious. People may want to get back.